Hello there! I suppose you have already come across many kinds of teachers. The boring one, the funny one, the eccentric one, the humanities teacher, and so on. But in today's video, I'm going to talk about when I had a truly scary teacher. It all happened when I was taking English classes around the age of 15. At that time, I was in the intermediate module, and I had already had different teachers in the previous modules, of course. And they all had two things in common. First, they spoke English. Duh. Second, they all seemed like they came out of a Disney movie. And this, combined with the fact that I studied with two other friends that I really liked. Going to English class was almost like being in heaven. But all of that changed when he showed up. I usually mention everybody's real names in these stories, but this time I'll keep the name a secret because it was truly a traumatizing experience. So, one day in class, my friends and I were talking while we waited for the teachers, when all of a sudden... Out of nowhere, he walked in the room. 2 meters tall, pure intimidation, incredibly strong, bald, and looking like a military guy who would throw a bomb in a city full of innocent people just to burn some files. This guy's presence was so imposing that I broke into a cold sweat just by looking at him. And it didn't take long for me to discover that it wasn't just his appearance that was threatening. Who is this guy? You! Shut up! Wow! And that was just the beginning of it. Oh, just a quick pause to contextualize the story here for you. For those who don't know, I'm from Brazil. So these English classes were for me to actually learn how to speak English. Bear in mind that even though my English nowadays isn't the best in the world, it was very basic at the time of this story. Now let's get back to the story. And after telling me to shut up, he pointed at me and said, "You, ask him where he lives." What? Are you deaf? Ask him where he lives. Where do you live? What? Where do you live? Terrible pronunciation. Do better. Where do you live? Good. Now you, answer him. I live in Rio de Janeiro. Terrible. Do you have a speech problem? Repeat it, but try to speak like a human being now. And that was the hell we went through for almost an hour and a half. That felt more like an eternity, but fortunately it was just circumstantial, because he was just replacing the teacher who couldn't come that day. But it was still a big shock for us, because we were used to having classes with Disney princesses. And then out of nowhere, a tractor came in to teach. At least it was just that day, right? Right? In the next module, we moved on to the advanced level, and my friends and I received the terrible news of who would be our teacher in this module. We found out that our teacher would be him. Robson, the colossal titan. Oh, you thought I was really traumatized? I spare nobody. And I remember that going to the first class with him felt like heading to the death row. And my friend, the first classes were tough. It was a bullying festival because of our pronunciation and grammar mistakes. But what initially had a terrible impact on us eventually became normal over time, so we quickly got used to it. And a complete change came on a day when I cracked a joke, and he laughed. Wait, is he laughing? I think so. Yes, he definitely is. Good. And that was it. From that moment on, his tough guy facade was not intimidating anymore. So, even though he remained exactly the same person with the same attitude throughout the remaining classes, the intimidation we felt quickly disappeared. So the classes weren't like being in hell anymore. They just became regular classes. And yes, we sometimes told him that he was quite rude and that he could go a little easier on us. But he always answered the same thing. Don't you think you sometimes go too hard on us? I don't want to be loved. I want to be remembered. And guess what? He got what he wanted. Because even though I'm far from loving him, here I am making a video about this guy. So, Robson is definitely remembered. And that's it, guys. That was the story of the scariest teacher I had. And what about you? Have you ever had a teacher who scared you? Or perhaps a different teacher that you still remember for some special reason? Leave it in the comments because you're probably not alone. And of course, if you've made it this far, leave it a like before you go. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time!